Time for the word on Wall Street. Top investors watching your money this week. Joining me now, UBS Financial Services Private Wealth Advisor, Ali McCartney, Mahoney Asset Management CEO, Ken Mahoney, and FreedomWorks economist and economic advisor to President Trump, Steve Moore. First up, Ken, we're looking at what's moving the economy as we head to the new year. We're just a few days away from the Georgia runoff race. Tuesday's results will determine basically the future direction of the country, who controls the Senate. This is COVID vaccines are rolling out across the U.S., but there's concern about a more contagious variant of the virus that has showed up in 2 states here in the United States. Ken, how will just put this in perspective on how this will all impact the market in 2021?
Walking into 2021, there's so many challenges and opportunities at the same time. I think if they look back at the presidential election, we saw Pfizer with their vaccination, we saw Moderna with the vaccination, and the market looks ahead. And I think what they're seeing is the rebirth of the consumer. Consumer demands can start increasing once we get through the vaccination period, which will take some time, no doubt. And hopefully, again, on the other side of it, but always kind of this feeling of being kind of held up and claustrophobic. We want to spend money again. And if you look at consumer spending historically, David, over the many years, kind of goes like this, right? You know, expansions and contractions. You can superimpose consumer demand and consumer spending with the stock market. So I think that bodes very well. We have a very common Fed, of course. Fed fund rates at 0.25%. They're still buying assets. Treasury checks are going out. So I think it does bode well for the market. Again, some hiccups. Investing is never easy. But I think at the end of the day, consumer spending is going to be the theme of 2021.
Would you bet on retail quickly, Ken?
No, I would not. No, I would not like retail. I'm going to stick mostly with technology. I'll stick in the fast lane with them.
Okay. Ali, the IPO boom surges into 2021. Companies raising $167 billion in 454 offerings on U.S. exchanges this year. That blows past the previous 4-year record of $108 billion. And that was at the height of the 1990s first dot-com boom. Working at a dot-com at the time, I remember how that ended. Much of that activity in the back half of this year, $67.3 billion raised in just the 4th quarter. Does it play out like 2000 when that technology, that dot-com bubble went poof? Or how does is it a better road ahead next year, you think?
I think you're probably going to see more of the same next year. I cover a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the tech space, and there are a lot of S1s about to be filed. What I would say when you start to talk about the IPO market and the liquidity, we just talked about the rise in Bitcoin, the rise in the stock market. All IPOs and all SPACs are not created equal. So I'll point to Scott Galloway, someone I follow very closely, talked about the DoorDash and Airbnb IPO. And he said, look, one of these is going public because of the epidemic. One has done extraordinarily well in spite of the epidemic. Which one would you like to own next year? So I think you have to think about that. I think especially when you're investing in SPACs, that does concern me. I don't think we see a 2000. I think if you look at the valuations and the growth that's expected for many of the companies, they're at the high end, but they have legitimate businesses and services. But when you buy into these, think about your holding period. With a SPAC, think about the alignment that you have with the SPAC principal.
And just to be clear, Ali, a SPAC is an acronym for Special Purpose Acquisition Corporation. And explain to people the issue, if you will.
So when you buy an IPO of a public company, you know exactly what you're buying. You can read everything that's been filed. You're buying into one company, and you decide whether to hold, sell, et cetera. When you buy a special purpose acquisition vehicle, you basically are buying a steward of capital's decision in the future to make accretive acquisitions, but they have not been determined yet. And they have to be made over a certain period of time, giving that principal the incentive to make an acquisition, whether accretive or not, in order to capture fees. So I just want to make sure that the public is understanding what that is. That's a very important distinction, Dagan.
Ali, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a cat?
I have, speaking of dogs, I have a Portuguese water dog that is up about an hour before he's normally up, and he's very curious
He's
about what's
behind
going on
you,
now.
I think,
And he's got
in the
this
window.
tail,
Yeah, that's. I was wondering what that was. I thought it could it be a raccoon?
That is my out here it could be. That is my happy pandemic dog.
Okay. I love a a dog in the background. Steve, let's move on to, so should Joe Biden be inaugurated, you're expecting gold to surge and the federal borrowing to hit new highs. Explain that.
Well, you look at the spending that's coming, and I think you're going to get those $2,000 checks now that Donald Trump has put them on the table. It may not happen under Donald Trump. It may happen under Biden. But you're looking at a real surge in spending on everything from infrastructure to the climate change agenda. And the thing that I wanted to ask is, given that one of Biden's top agendas on fiscal policy is this massive tax increase on capital gains, increasing the corporate tax rate, I'm just wondering why it is that the market is not taking this into account. Is it possible that the market just doesn't think that those tax increases will happen?
Ken, you want to answer that? Is it?
Sure. Yeah,
go ahead. Just go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. So I think the market's kind of saying to itself, that can happen, but not in the middle of a pandemic. I think, the legislation of higher capital gains and all these crazy taxes is not going to be good. So I think the market's thinking, yes, they may happen, but not in 2021, and we'll kick the can down the road and we'll deal with it then. And look, then you have the midterm elections. There's something that happened to Obama. He didn't get that legislation through, and I don't think Biden's going to be able to get this through. And the pandemic to raise taxes, not a good idea.
You read my mind, Ken Mahoney. Thank you so much. Ken Mahoney, Allie McCartney, and Steve Morris sits right there. Happy New Year to both of you. Can't wait to spend more time with you in 2021.